So we were discussing about working stress method. So as I told in the last class, working stress method is used not only for designing reinforced concrete structure, but also structure made of steel, timber, etc. Right? Now, what are the assumptions? So before this, I will just briefly, in a very easily understandable manner, I would like to mention to you what is exactly the these methods are. Okay, let us say you are able to see the whiteboard. Okay, so let us say you want to design one column. Let us say column is there is a column of size. Let us say 200 mm by 200 mm. This is the column. Okay, so this is a column of this is 200, cross section is 200 mm by 200 mm. Length could be anything. And let us say the axial load of 2000 kilonewton is applied. 2000 kilonewton. Okay. Right. So now let us say the compressive strength of this material. I am telling compressive resistance of this material is 300 MPa. Let us say MPa or 300 Newton per millimeter square. Okay. Now for this one, what is the actual stress applied here? What is the actual stress that is? Remember, this is a strength. This is a strength of the material. This 300 MPa is the strength of compressive strength of this column. Okay. Now, a load applied is 2000 kilonewton, and the area of this cross-sectional area of the column is 200 by 200. So, what will be the stress coming onto this column section? Stress is nothing but load divided by area. What is the load? 2000 kilonewton or 2000 into 10 cube newtons divided by area is 200 multiplied by 200 millimeters square. So how much this would be if you cancel these 4 zeros? So 200 divided by 4, 50 Newton per millimeter square. Okay, so applied stress or stress due to applied load is equal to 50 Newton per millimeter square, and the strength of compressive strength of the column itself 300 MPa. It is less than the resistance strength or strength of the column. So this column will be safe. Now, in working stress method, for example, if I take this what is told 300 MPa, maybe let us say here, that is a 300 MPa. 300 MPa is here, somewhere here. This is the strength of the column, that is 300 ultimate strength. This is not strength, ultimate strength is 300 MPa. That is at this point. Okay. In working stress method, what happened? Remember, you have one material and you have externally applied load. These are the two things you should focus on. In working stress method, what happens is that because your 300 MPa is here, this is including all the non-linear portion. In working stress method, simply it takes only up to linear point, whatever the strength that is available up to linear point, let us here. Within this linear point, stress is proportional to strain. It takes that your strength of the material is only this much. That means, although you have a 300 MPa, 300 MPa, you apply here, you reduce the strength to a very lowest degree. It may be only 150 or so, 150 MPa, because you are taking only linear part. Your all the strength is neglected in working stress method. In working stress method, the material strength is reduced only to a linear part, up to linear elastic part. Okay, here only. So your material, let us say 150 MPa. So you will design the structure. Okay, my load is stress is equal to load by area. Now suppose I want to see the size of what should be the size of the column according to working stress method. I will say area is equal to P by sigma. That is P is 2000 into 10 cube divided by the strength of the column. I will take only this up to here 150 like that. So based on this, whatever calculation I get, I will find out the area. So in a working stress method, you are reducing the strength of the material only to a linear elastic portion. Okay, either the steel or in the concrete also, you are reducing the material strength to a only elastic limit, and that to linear elastic limit. Is that clear? Okay, that is working stress method. Now in the ultimate load method or ultimate stress method, so in working stress method, remember in working stress method, your load is kept constant, load is not changed, but strength of the material is taken as up to only linear elastic. Okay, so all the material, whether it's a concrete or steel, whatever material you use WSM method or working stress method, you will always limit the assume that material is elastic, it obeys Hooke's law, and the stress strain curve is linear. Okay, so that is working stress method. Whereas in ultimate load method, ULM. Okay, in ultimate load method, what happens is that again I will now here in ultimate load method, what happens is that again you have a load and the strength of column or column material. Okay, strength of material you have. In ultimate load method, what you are doing is your strength of the material will always kept constant, but you are increasing the load by a load factor. Let us say there is applied load. We had in our thing 2000 kilonewton is the applied load. What we will do is this applied load is multiplied by load factor to get this collapse load. This is called collapse load or ultimate load. Collapse or ultimate load. And you analyze the structure only for the collapse load. Means, see, in a working stress method, your maximum deflection or strain will not go beyond this. This much only will be the strain. But in ultimate load method, your elongation or contraction or the strain in the material will be this much, because you are analyzing the structure for ultimate load up to here. So you are elongating, you are loading the structure up to this much. That this much elongation or the displacement will be there in the structure. So obviously this will produce very, although your strength, your structure will be very strong in the sense that because you are designing a structure for a higher load. Okay, for example, here in the working stress method, what happens is that you are reducing the permission. One second. Yeah. So both the steel reinforcement and concrete act together in a perfectly elastic at all stage. Remember, it's elastic. Modular ratio can be used to determine the stresses and strain. And as I told you, it is because it is it follows Hooke's law. So you can easily say that suppose this is your rectangular beam and here is the reinforcement. Now if you draw the stress strain, let us say strain curve, strain curve will be something like this. So whatever the strain that is at this level, these are all reinforcements, and here is a concrete. The strain at concrete and steel will be same. That's what here. So from this you can find out strain multiplied by Young's modulus will give you stress. So stress in the steel and stress in the concrete can be find out using this modular ratio, which I explained last time. So permissible stresses are kept well below the material strength. That's what I'm saying here in working stress method. This is the permissible stress. This is the permissible stress in working stress method. This permissible stress is kept well below the strength. This is the strength of the material, but permissible stress is kept. Permissible stresses are kept well below the material strength. Okay, is that clear? Your maximum ultimate strength is here, but you are permitting the structure to experience stress only up to here, and that is a lot of difference from here to here. So you are restricting the stress in the material very less. So consequently, you will have a higher section. You will, if you see the cross section of a column designed based on working stress method, you will have very high section. But based on ultimate load method, if you design the structure, your structure will be very thin because you are taking the stress in the concrete up to this much, or stress in the materials this much. So in working stress method, permissible stress is ultimate stress divided by factor of safety in case of brittle material, yield stress divided by factor of safety, that is for ductile material. And as I told you, factor of safety for steel in a working stress method is 1.78. That means if you find actually this is not exactly correct, but this I want to explain the concept, that's all. So as I told in the last class, how this 1.78 was arrived and how 3 was arrived. I showed you the table 21 and 22, which shows the stresses in concrete and permissible stresses in concrete and steel. So you can refer to that. Okay. Now here let us say you take Fe 500 steel. Remember, this we will discuss about in a while. What is this 500? Whenever you call a steel, you call a steel with the particular grade. This grade is called Fe 500 steel. 500 is the yield strength of steel. When I say Fe 500, that number denotes the yield strength or characteristic strength of steel. Similarly, you have Fe 415. Similarly, you have Fe 250 steel. So these are the yield strength or characteristic strength of steel. Now, as I told you, for a steel is a ductile material, the allowable stress or permissible stress is yield stress divided by factor of safety. So although your steel will yield only at 500 Newton per millimeter square, but in working stress method, you will assume that your steel is going to yield only at 280 Newton per millimeter square. So you are restricting the strength of this steel to only 280, whereas it can take up to 500 Newton per millimeter square. You are saying that my steel is going to fail only at 280 Newton per millimeter square. So obviously, because the area required is always P by sigma, because you are lowering the sigma here, instead of 500, you are putting 280, so your area will become more. Is that clear? So your structure designed based on working stress method will have a huge section, but the only advantage is that because you are limiting only within the linear limit, the strain in the structure or the elongation or displacement in the structure will be very, very less. So the structure is completely serviceable. Serviceable means there is no deflection. There is no fear will be there for you to stay in such a structure. That is why if you see very old structure, more ancient structure and all, it will be very huge thickness only because it was designed based on working stress method. Now, you can use, because it is a linear elastic material, you can usually use the concept of strength of materials. Whatever you have studied for evaluating stress and all these things, you can use strength of material to you can use strength of material concept to find out the stresses in concrete and steel and so forth. So for example, Here, there exists a perfect bond between concrete and steel, as essentially concrete is a composite material which consists of concrete and steel. There is a perfect bond between concrete and steel. That is why you are having a same strain. As I told you, why we are using steel as reinforcement steel in the concrete, because the coefficient of thermal expansion for concrete and steel is almost same. So we are using the steel as a reinforcing steel, and there is a perfect bond between concrete and steel. Now, strain developed in the steel and surrounding concrete at any load is equal, that I discussed some time back. Now, stresses in steel is indirectly related to the stress in surrounding concrete. So, stress in steel is equal to modular ratio multiplied by stress in concrete. So, if you know the stress in concrete multiplied by modular ratio, you will get stress in steel. This is the modular ratio, means Young's modulus of steel divided by Young's modulus of concrete. And you already know what is Young's modulus of concrete or modulus of elasticity of concrete, 5000 root FCK. And Young's ES, you know, modulus of elasticity of steel, 2 into 10 power 5 Newton per millimeter square. Because you are using modular ratio, this working stress method is also called the modular ratio method. So this is working stress method. So now in your code, in working stress method, modular ratio M is defined in other way also, 280 divided by 3 sigma CBC, where sigma CBC is a permissible compressive stress in concrete due to bending given in table 1. For example, for M30 grade, modular ratio will be 280 divided by 3 into 10, 9.33. So sometimes this is asked to find out the modular ratio for M30 grade concrete. Okay, so I will show you here. Okay, this is the permissible stress in concrete. Now I will show you the other one also. The modular ratio M has the value 280 divided by 3 sigma CBC. In working stress method, the modular ratio M has the value 280 divided by 3 sigma CB. See, sigma CB is the permissible compressive stress due to bending in concrete in Newton per millimeter square, specified in table 21. So table 21 is there at the bottom. So for M30 concrete, sigma CBC, this is sigma CC, this is sigma CBC. It's not very clearly visible, but if I make it zoom in that area, you will easily able to see. See, this is sigma CBC, this is sigma CC. So for M30 grade concrete, sigma CBC is 10. So you can easily find out for M30 grade concrete, modular ratio M is equal to 280 divided by 3 sigma CBC. The sigma CBC for M30 concrete is 10. So 9.33 is the modular ratio. So this is working stress method. Now there are some inherent advantages of working stress method. What are those? It's a very simple method because you are going to use only linear elastic method. So it's a very simple method. Anybody can design the structure based on working stress method very easily. Now structure designed based on this method are performing satisfactorily for many years. So some structure are serving its life for more than 1000 years also. The structure designed based on working stress method. Now it has better serviceability performance and working load. Better serviceability performance. What is the serviceability performance? Serviceability performance means there is no deflection. For example, let us say you have this is a floor of your house, roof floor. Okay. Now let us say, and this is the ground floor, and you have first floor here. Okay. Now suppose this floor has become like this because of the load. Let us say this floor has deflected like this. Will you be able to comfortably sit anywhere here? If you put to the table, table will be looking like this. It will go somewhere like this because of undulation here. There's a pond effect here. Originally it should be flat, but because of lack of design, your structure has deflected like this. You will feel so very uncomfortable to operate on this platform here, and also those who are inside this, they will feel always afraid when it will fall here. So that is called serviceability. Serviceability performance means the people should feel very comfortable to stay inside the house. So serviceability has a deflection, cracking, vibration, and all those stuff. So the structure designed based on working stress method is it has a better serviceability performance. Okay. So deflection cracks are made only if you want to do deflection checks are done only based on working loads. So working load is nothing but the actual applied load in the structure, actual applied load in the service or service load. Actual load, working load, service load, all are same. So this method is used for designing special structures like water tanks. If you want to design any liquid retaining structures, sometime nuclear reactor, bridges, water tanks, all these structures are designed based on working stress method because you do not even want to have a slightest crack in the structure. If you have a slightest crack in the structure, for example, if let us say you are carrying acid in inside a nuclear reactor or some other structure, if there is a crack, it is going to leak out and it is going to produce enormous consequences on the environment. So that is why you have to have a design based on working stress method for water tank, liquid retaining structure, bridges, nuclear reactor, and other structures as well. Now, as there are some advantages, there are some drawbacks also. What are the drawbacks of working stress method? The main assumption of linear elastic behavior and the implied assumption that the stresses under working loads can be kept within the perimeter stresses are found to be unrealistic. Actually, any material, it is very difficult for it to behave in a linearly elastic manner. It will always behave in a non-linear manner only and not fully elastic, sometimes elastic, plastic and all. So this assumption is unrealistic. Now the use of modular ratio, because you are using elastic method, you will generally larger member size will come. If you design a beam or column or slab, the size of the member will be very huge. So self weight will be increased in the structure. Now the stress strain curve for concrete is non-linear. Stress strain curve for a concrete is non-linear, and also it is time dependent. But this method does not consider the consequence of material. Non-linearity is completely neglected in working stress method. Now, working stress method does not discriminate the different types of load that act simultaneously. For example, sometime live load will be there, some dead load will always be there. So when people occupy the building, live load is there. When they are not there, live load is not there. For example, in our college, from 9 to 4, people are sitting inside the classroom. So after from evening 5 o'clock to next to morning 8 o'clock, there is nobody, there is no live load at all. So at that time, live load is not acting. So similarly, wind load, sometime wind load is there, sometime wind load not there. So in working stress method, all the loads are taken as with a factor 1. These are all the loads are taken with a factor of safety 1. So there is no different factor of safety given for different types of load. All different types of load is taken as unit weightage. Okay, fully it is taken into account. But in other methods, not like so. So for example, particularly when two different loads, dead load and live load, have contracting effects. So you are going to have a very uneconomical design by working stress method. Okay, although structure will be completely safe, but it is very highly this one. The failure mode cannot be observed because you are your structure, your strength of material is something like this stress strain curve. You are limiting your structure only up to here. So what is happening after this? We are not even bothered about. So the failure mode can, because it will fail only here. This failure mode cannot be estimated using working stress method. Effect of shrinkage creep cannot be accounted in working stress method. So these are all not there in the working stress method. These are the various drawbacks or demerits of working stress method. Now, as to overcome this this one linear elastic behavior and also to overcome this weakness of method, the researchers have come out with the ultimate load method. Okay. In this method is also referred to load factor method. Load factor method or ultimate strength method. The shortcomings of working stress method lead to the development of ultimate load design. So here, because here you are going to take in this method the non-linear stress strain curve of concrete and steel, and the stress condition just before the collapse are considered. As I told here in this one, we are going to operate only at this point. So you are including all this non-linear part also. So you are analyzing the structure only for the collapse load. So you are taking into account of non-linear stress strain curve, right? So in this method, non-linear stress strain curve of concrete and steel also taken into account, and you are finding out the stress condition just before the collapse. We say this is a failure or collapse, and just before the collapse is ultimate load. That is why it is called ultimate load method. We are focused more on this one. Just this is the collapse point or fracture point. This one is the collapse point. Just before collapse point is ultimate load point. So that is why here that is considered. Now in this method, different types of load are assigned with different types of factor under combined loading condition. Here in a working stress method, as I told you, live load, dead load, wind load, right? Factor was taken as 1, 1, 1 here in the working stress method. But in a ultimate load method, different load factors under combined loading conditions are taken. That is overcoming the related work shortcoming of working stress method. Now, sufficient safety is achieved by the use of load factor, because your actual load in the structure is P, but you are multiplying this load by a load factor, and you are assuming that your load, this is your design load, and you are designing the structure, and this factor is always more than greater than 1. So you are designing the structure greater than the load that is actually acting on the structure. So obviously your design will be safe in terms of strength, which is defined as the ratio of ultimate load to the load. What is load factor? Load factor is defined by ultimate load or design load to the working load or service load. So collapse load, sorry, this one. So collapse load or ultimate load is equal to working load multiplied by load factor. Okay. Now stress condition before collapse is considered, that is written here also. Stress condition before the collapse is considered. This method is called load factor method. Okay. So in a working stress method, you are applying factor of safety on the strength of material. In an ultimate load method, you are applying load factor or a load factor on the load. So here you are not touching the load at all. Load is as it is maintained. Here the strength is maintained as it is. It is not touched at all, but load is changed to ultimate load. Okay, that is the difference between working stress method and ultimate load method. Now, obviously, there is very serious defect of ultimate load method. That is why this method has been completely eradicated. There is no more structure designed based on ultimate load method. What are this problem with ultimate load method? The performance at the normal service load is not considered. What they are saying is, see, you have designed the structure for this one at this load, and that load is only collapse load, but the actual load will be somewhere here. Let us say somewhere here. Actual load is somewhere here. What is happening at this point? Whether the structure is safe in terms of deflection and crack and all, is the structure is safe here for this actual load. This is actual load here. So this is actual load. This is ultimate load or collapse load. You have designed the structure for this one, but you are not checking for the actual load, the original load which is coming onto the structure, how much deflection it is producing. That and all you are not at all bothered about it. So that is why the performance at the normal service load is not at all considered in the ultimate load method. And there is no control against excess deflection. For example, suppose if you design the structure up to here, obviously this much of deflection will be there. So deflection will be very excessive in the structure because you are using the full strength of the material. Obviously you will have a very thin section coming into the picture. Like a working stress method gives you very huge section. Ultimate load method will give you very thin section because you are using the full strength of the material. If the strength of material is 300 MPa, you will use all 300 MPa. You will not assume that strength of material is 150 MPa. So that is why the structure designed based on ultimate load method will be little thinner in size. So obviously deflection will be more. Now satisfactory performance at ultimate load does not guarantee satisfactory serviceability performance at normal loads. These points are related. So although at the ultimate load your structure may be safe, but at the actual load, what is the serviceability performance means deflection, crack and all, how it is. That may not be satisfying. So this is why this ultimate load method or ultimate strength method, this is not anymore available in the design. Okay. So now, as I told you, to overcome the demerits of working stress method as well as ultimate load method, researchers have come up with the limit state method in 1978. So what is limit state? Limit state is a limit state is a state of impending failure beyond which structure ceases to perform its intended function satisfactorily in terms of safety and serviceability. Okay, so structure should be safe and structure should be serviceable. If these both limit state are satisfied, then your structure is safe. So this definition, it is also given in the code. We will see in due time. Now, limit state design is a design approach that combines the best features of ultimate strength design, safety at it take into safety at ultimate load, and working stress method. It's also taken to serviceability at working load. So working stress method was only taking care of the serviceability at working load, and ultimate load method is taking care of only safety at ultimate load. So none of them are taking care of each other. So limit state method has come to take care of both combinedly. These two are combined in limit state method. In other words, you are applying factor of safety on the load also. You are applying factor of safety on the material also. Okay, so in a working stress method, you have factor of safety only in the material. In the ultimate load method, you have only at the factor of safety on the load, but limit state will have a factor of safety on both of this. Okay, that is limit state design. Okay, now it will result in a better structural performance in strength and serviceability. Limit state method. Multiple safety factors are considered for various types of loads to account for uncertainties, because there are factor of safety in the load, which we will discuss in detail after some time. Now, if you have a code, please take to 35.1, page number 69. If you have the code, I request you, all of you, to bring your code, because I am going to refer many things from here on code. So unless you know where it is, it will be very difficult for you to refer later on. Even when the quiz exam comes, you will be flipping the pages. You will not be able to find out where the data to find. But if you have, when I am teaching at the time, if you have code, it is easy to refer. So take a print of the code and take a bound. So bound copy with you, so that it's very easy. So limits. What is limit state? It is designed as the acceptable limit for safety and serviceability before the failure occurs. That is called limit state. So I'll show you in the code itself. 69 maybe. Okay, you can see structural design limit state method, section 5, safety and serviceability. Here you can see the definition of limit state. Here, acceptable limit. Here, the acceptable limit for safety and serviceability requirements before failure occurs is called limit state method. So this is the limit state. So all the definition, most of your answers are lying in this code itself, but just that students will not know where to find the answer. So this is the limit state definition. So in this section, you are going to repeatedly use this limit state method. So we will see one by one, right? Now, there are two types of limit state. As I told you, that is limit state of collapse or limit state of failure. Another one is called limit state of serviceability. So both are given here, limit state of collapse or safety and limit state of serviceability. So if you go down further a little bit, like as I told you, limit state of collapse and limit state of serviceability. 35.2 is case limit state of collapse, 35.3 limit state of serviceability. Okay. So there are two types of limit state. One is limit state of collapse, another one is limit state of serviceability. Now, what is limit state of collapse? What it says is here, limit state of collapse. The limit state of collapse of the structure or part of the structure could be assessed from the rupture of one or more critical section. So the resistance to bending, shear, torsion and axial load at every section shall not be less than the appropriate value at that section produced by the probable most unfavorable combination of load on the structure using the appropriate partial safety factor. Now I will explain here in the slide. So limit state of collapse combines four things. What are those? It is there in the 35.2 of IS 456. Reference, this is the reference. So this is the reference. I always give reference everywhere so you can see where it is in the code. So limit state of collapse deals with the strength, overturning and buckling, etc. Now there are four things: flexure or bending. Your structure should be safe in flexure or bending. It should be safe in compression. It should be safe in shear. It should be safe in torsion. Now, obviously, for in the limit state of flexure for bending, in this one, slab is designed for bending. Beams are designed for bending. Similarly, foundation also designed for bending. Okay. Here, compression member is columns are designed for compression. Shear, beam, foundation, and slab. You will design because beam will also have a shear force. If you see any beam or slab you take when it is subjected to load, you have bending moment diagram, shear force, like this is the bending moment diagram, this is a shear force diagram. This entire you studied in your SM, right? So you will be designing for the maximum shear force using this shear concept. You will be designing for the maximum bending moment using this bending concept. And if you are like in the SM2, you studied about compressions, buckling of column and all, because you will find out the oils buckling load and all. So based on that compressions, you will design the structure for the compression using here. So compression you have column, and torsion also there in the beam and slab. Okay, so your structure, if you are designing a slab, the slab should be safe in slab strength in bending should be more than the bending stress. Similarly, shear also more. Shear strength of the slab should be more than the shear due to external load. Torsional strength of the slab should be more than the torsional moment produced, torsional stress produced by the torsion. Okay, so these are the 4 parts: flexure, compression, shear, and torsion. This you will be studying in the first 2 units. These two. This you will be studying in 4th unit. This you will be studying in 3rd unit, and also in the foundation comes 1, 2, and 6 also. And torsion also included in that. See, actually 1, 2, 3, 4 also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. This will take care. This and this, and also this, because we have a design means combined design. So practically all these 4 covers your complete syllabus. Now, what is limit state of serviceability? 35.3 gives. So 35.3 says limit state of serviceability deal with the discomfort experienced by the occupants or occupancy due to discomfort due to deflection, discomfort due to cracking in the structure, discomfort due to the vibration in the structure, and discomfort due to fire resistance. If fire is not like it is very hot, if the structure is very, because even for lesser heat it is becoming very hot, that also become uncomfortable to live in the building. So these are the aspect of limit state of serviceability. These and all it will be taught. So you don't have a detailed this on this one. We will only focus on deflection. Other thing you will be studying in your higher courses, not here. Only deflection we will be teaching here in this particular course. So now, what is characteristic strength of concrete? The characteristic strength of concrete, which is giving it, which is presented in 36.1 of IS 456. I'll go 36.1 here. See, all these definitions are asked sometime in the examination. The answer to this is right away available here. The characteristic strength means that value of the strength of material below which not more than 5% of the test results are expected to fall. That is called characteristic strength of material, or characteristic strength of concrete means. Characteristic means the value of strength of material below which not more than 5% of the test result are expected to fall. What does it mean is, see here, this is the same thing I represented here. Let us say you have a 150 by 150 mm concrete cube. This you have tested in your strength of material lab, although you must have tested for a small cube 70.1, 70 by 70.1 like that. Let us say, how do you calculate characteristic strength of concrete? Let us say you take a cube and you apply a compressive load, okay, axial compressive load. Now you will get this kind of curve. In your laboratory, you took only the what is the failure load at this point. What is the load? Here it is coming 30 MPa. That's what you must have measured. You must have measured only this one. Along this point, what is the stress? That is 30 MPa. You must have measured in your SM lab. But here, what you do is you take, let us say, you take 100 specimen. You take 100 such specimen and you perform a compressive strength test. You will get 100 different results like this. 1 to 100 results are there. These are the number of specimen 1 to specimen 100, and it has various compressive strength value. This is y-axis compressive strength. Now what the code says, if you test this 100 specimen, you remove 5 specimen, lowest value. For example, during the compression test on cube in the laboratory, not more than 5 in 100 test result fall below the characteristic value. That means what you do is first arrange the test result in ascending order. Like here, it is not in ascending order, right? It is see, it is going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, down. So you arrange this all these strength in ascending order, something like this. So arrange the test result in ascending order, something like it is only ascending from lowest value to a highest value. Okay, I arranged the 100 test result in an ascending order. Now remove the first 5 test values. For example, the 6th test result is the characteristic value of the concrete. So here first value mine is 20.5, second value 21.7, third value is 22, fourth value is 23.5, fifth value is 25, sixth value 25.3, And like that, I will have all the 100 result going on like this. Now, what the code says, the characteristic strength of this combination of 100 cube is, you remove all these 5 test result first, because 5% of 5% test result. That is why you removing first 5 result. So 25.3 is the characteristic strength of this particular concrete, which is made of this 100 cubes. Made of this particular concrete has a characteristic strength of 25.3 MPa, or you can easily say 25 MPa. So that is a characteristic strength. So characteristic compressive strength, which is defined by the symbol F suffix CK. Please remember this, very important. Characteristic compressive strength of concrete FCK is, you test the cube after 28 days soaked in water. You cast a 150 mm by 150 mm by 150 mm cube concrete cube, and the next day after casting you put them in water, all the 100 cube inside the water, soaking, curing for 28 days. After 28 days you perform the compressive tests on this specimen. You will get this 100 result. Remove the first 5 result. The 6th one you have to arrange the test result in ascending order and remove the first 5. The 6th value is the characteristic strength. Suppose you don't have enough concrete to making 100 specimen, then you take only 20 specimen. So in 20, what is the 5%? 1 specimen. So you test 20 different specimen, and the first one arrange them in the ascending order. First one you neglected. That is the second one is the characteristic compressive strength of concrete. Okay, so that is the characteristic compressive strength of concrete is the compressive strength of cube of size 150 mm by 150 mm by 150 mm at 28 days curing. So characteristic strength of concrete is represented by symbol FCK. FCK. Please keep a note of it. FCK is a characteristic compressive strength of concrete. Now, similarly, this is for concrete. Similarly, you also have for reinforcing steel. Characteristic strength of steel is called Fy, is its yield strength. Whatever the yield strength of the steel is, that is the characteristic strength of steel, and Fy is denoted by the characteristic strength of steel. So FCK is for concrete, characteristic strength of concrete. Fy is for characteristic strength of steel. Is that clear? Fy is a characteristic strength of yield steel, and it is always a yield strength of the steel, not ultimate. Many times students make mistake. Characteristic strength of steel is its yield strength, not ultimate strength. Please remember that. Characteristic strength of steel is its yield strength. Now for Fe 500 steel, characteristic strength Fy is equal to 500 MPa. Similarly, Fe 415, you have 415 MPa. Likewise, so on and so forth. Now, what is a grade of concrete? This is also given in your code book itself. If you go a little ahead, here. Here, grade. Characteristic is defined here also. The characteristic strength of design and strength will not more than 5% test result for concrete. The minimum grade of concrete for plain reinforced, everything is mentioned there. So grade of concrete is this one only. Grade of concrete designated in number, which represent the characteristic compressive strength of 150 mm cube at 28 days in curing. The number is usually preceded by letter M. So mix M is mix. So grade of concrete M30 represent the concrete having a compressive strength of 30 MPa at 28 days. Okay, grade of concrete M30 means concrete having compressive strength of 30 MPa at 28 days curing. That is called M30. Now in your here, if you see in table 2, here grades of concrete. So ordinary concrete is varies from 10 to 20. Standard concrete, actually they have changed the code after this one more amendment. So M60 also come here. M60 also comes in this category. So in ordinary concrete, M10 to M20 is called ordinary concrete. Standard concrete is called M25 to M60. This is not there. And up to M65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 100, 85, 90, 95, 100. So these are all 8 here. This is another 8 here. This is 8. This is 8. This is 3. So total 19 different type of this is there. This M65 to M100 is called high strength concrete. M25 to M60 called standard concrete. M10 to M20 is called ordinary concrete. Now, in your code says somewhere that if you want to design a structure, minimum you should have M25 minimum M25 or M20. Somewhere they mentioned here somewhere. See, in the designation of concrete mix, M refers to the mix. This M refers to the mix, and the number to the specified compressive strength of 150 mm size at 28 days. Okay, this number refers to M is mix. Number refers to compressive strength of 150 mm size cube at 28 days in Newton per millimeter square. Okay, so that is this one. So we will stop here and we will proceed further in the next class. So is there any doubt to anybody? Please ask for any doubt.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, is there any reason for taking 5% of the test characteristic strength of concrete?
Yeah, why? Because see, we are saying that let us say if you assume that more than 20%, 30%, then what we are saying is that let us say I prepare a cube of M20 grade. That means all my cubes should have a size of 20 Newton per millimeter square, right? All my cubes should have a 20 Newton per millimeter square. Let us say out of 20 specimen, let us say around 10 specimen is having only 19. Then you cannot call that your particular specimen is M20 grade concrete. It is only M19 concrete, because you are designing a cube for M20, but your error is more than 50%. So obviously that structure will be very dangerous to design based on the what test result you have. That is why they kept very low. They could cast, you see, minimum you can escape, minimum you have to cast a 20 cube, because what is the 5% of 21, right?
1.
So if you, suppose if you say 10%, if you make it 10%, your structure may fail very fast because of tremendous variation in the concrete material. That is why the error percentage is kept in a lower side, not the higher side. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Any other question?